make things. We use our hands, minds, and machines to build, to fix, to improve. We're known as do-it-yourselfers, home improvement fans, fix-it fanatics, inventors. At our core, though, we're all makers. So let's jump in and make something.
Hi, I'm Ron Hazelton. Welcome to the show. Today's show is all about surfaces, colors, textures, patterns. First, I give our built-in bookcase some interest and depth by applying painted panels to the back. It's quick, easy, and changeable. Then we explore the intriguing world of painted faux finishes. My friends, the Faux Sisters. The trowel finish that they show me is one of the easiest I've seen to pull off. If you like old world patina, you'll love this. Then I hit the road to help this couple strip 100 years of paint off their front door in one fell swoop. I recently finished building my bookcase here, and when I painted the back, well, I made it the same color as the front and the sides, which is what I normally do. But my wife Lynn was looking through a magazine and she saw a bookcase very similar to this with the back painted an accent color, and we thought, you know what, that could look really good in this room. Lynn and I love this lamp, and we love this color green. We thought it would look great, possibly, as an accent color on the bookcase. The question was, though, what shade of green?
Well, there's plenty of natural green around this part of the country for inspiration, and I get to take it in every time I head over to the Home Improvement Center. With all the foliage fresh in my mind, I start looking through the paint chips and decide to pick 3 slightly different shades of green, with the thought that one of them will be just what we're looking for. A quart of each will let me do a test before I commit to a color. Back at the shop, I paint 3 sample panels, let them dry, then take them inside. Now, I'll admit, I'm a bit challenged when it comes to visualizing colors from a small chip. Making larger samples like this really helps, and it also lets me see the colors under different lighting conditions. So these are the 3 colors I picked out. What do you think?
I think they're all pretty. I think I definitely have a preference though for the middle one. I think this one over here, it's a little too strong, and when it gets dim out, it may actually look a little too dark. And that one looks a little too pale to me, doesn't really have enough contrast.
You took the words right out of my mouth, you know? The color expert that I am, I said, that's it right there, right? Actually, I kind of bracketed it so we'd have some leeway on either side. But no, I think you're right. I think you're right. You know, and the thing is, when I put these on the beadboard, it's just because I had beadboard lying around. I used it for material. I actually kind of like the look of that kind of the stripe, the texture back there. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking instead of painting the back of the bookcase, maybe what I'll do is I'll just cut panels out of that and paint the panels and just put them in there, just tack them in.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Yeah. With the color selection made, I get to work painting the beadboard, which I've cut to size. To attach the panels, I'm using just a few small brads, nailing mostly around the edges. This way, I have fewer nail holes to fill and an easier time removing the panels if later on I want to go for a different look. I really like the way this looks. It's added a nice accent to the room, and I'm really glad I did the color samples because I think we picked a really good one here. And you know what? If I get tired of this, I can just pop those panels out. The other day I was downtown having lunch at the Super Duper Weenie when up pulls this car and there's a sign on the side. It says Custom Works, Decorative Painting and Interiors. And I go, hey, I wonder if these people do faux finishes. So I go up, I tap on the window. Hi! The window rolls down and inside
are Cheryl and Julie. I've dubbed them the Faux Sisters, and that's what they do, faux finishes. So I asked if they'd come over, and I particularly want to learn one of the troweled finishes, you know, one of the ones that have pretty heavy texture.
Sure. Ron, we're giving you an apron so you don't get messy.
Really? I'm a messy person to begin with, so this is probably a good thing.
This is a textured paint made by Bear.
So this is actually paint?
Yes.
Well, it's very thick, isn't it?
thickened, yeah. It's like a peanut butter consistency.
It looks almost like thinned down
Joint compound, yeah, absolutely.
Texture paint, commonly used to hide wall and ceiling imperfections, is reinforced with interwoven fibers to resist cracking and bonds well to surfaces that have been previously painted. The Faux Sisters have me apply the texture paint using a trowel with rounded ends, designed for applying cement to the curved surfaces of swimming pools.
Actually, did you know my father was a plasterer?
Oh, then you should be good at this.
Yeah, but I've
There
never
you
used
go.
a pool trowel before.
It's almost on a 45-degree angle while you're dragging the plaster around or the stucco. It's a fast technique because with this larger trowel, you can cover a lot of area in a short amount of time.
For learning purposes, I'm working on this test panel. Once my skills are honed, I can think about doing this on one of my walls. Now for the texture part. To get the desired effect, I need to flatten the trowel and sort of drag it over the surface.
Let it grab a little.
Let it grab a little?
Yeah.
Almost flat?
Almost
flat. You can give it a little bit of an angle, otherwise you'll get stuck.
At times, it feels like the tool is skipping, which is why this is sometimes called skip troweling.
Right.
All right, so we'll put this aside. Now, I know normally you said 24 hours, but you, thinking ahead as you do so well, obviously, prepared another one of these beforehand.
Yes.
It's already dry,
Yes.
so we can move on
Right.
to the next step.
For the next step.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really
Try
dry.
now.
And you say this will not flake away like joint compound would.
No, and especially after it's painted, which is the next step we're going to do right now.
Okay. This is, what kind of paint is this? Water-based, right?
This is a water-based eggshell finish. You can use eggshell or satin.
But you wouldn't use, there you go again, satin.
No gloss.
You're a Connecticut girl, I could know that. Satin?
How else would I say?
Satin.
Sateen.
But not in Connecticut.
Satin.
It's satin in Connecticut.
Satin.
So this should cover everything.
Everything.
Right, this is a good-
completely covered.
So the long nap is getting down in those
Right.
recesses there.
Right.
Okay. And you said this is eggshell. You would not use a flat for this?
No, I wouldn't.
That looks
All
good.
right. Now this is a water-based paint, so normal dry on this would be what, maybe an hour?
Yeah.
With the base coat down and dry, we're ready to prepare the translucent top coat. We start with a clear water-based glazing liquid, then add concentrated colored pigment, in our case a medium brown shade, to end up with the color we want.
People have suggested using just diluted paint as a glaze.
Right.
What's the advantage of using a glazing medium and the colors as
tint.
opposed to just the diluted
Right.
paint?
Well, the glaze allows you more of an open time than you would have with just a watered-down paint.
Open time meaning it just stays.
Right, a watered-down paint would dry very quickly, and if you didn't like the effect you were getting, you'd have to re-wash down the whole thing and wipe it all off and restart again. This allows you to give it a little bit more time on the wall.
The glaze is applied to the entire surface with a medium nap roller. Once it's on, we take it off, but we don't take it all off.
So now I'm just taking my rag. It's actually a towel that's a rag, contractor rag towel, and I'm just wiping it off. Kind of in a circle. And you could smush it, go up a little higher with it. See how there's swipe marks in here?
Yeah. Those you want to see go away.
You don't want those. You want to just kind of
You don't want to push too hard either.
It's a light hand.
So this is collecting in the low spots or the depressions, right?
Right, so it's grabbing in all that texture that you've applied. Now after, I want to also show you, when you overlap on glaze, you're going to see a little bit of a darker effect if you let it dry too long.
Okay.
Which in some cases it might look nice. It might look like a water
Vein
weathered
mark or-
water vein. It's, you know, it gives it the whole aged effect. In certain areas you might want to push down a little to get more light
Oh
showing.
yeah, I see it. It comes up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And then
why
you can-
glaze could be a little tricky to work with.
But
It
you
just-
prefer the circular motion versus the figure eight motion, right?
Yeah.
We're done.
We're finished. It has to really cure for about 7 days.
This really does look like old plaster. As a token of my appreciation, I'd like to take you back down to the Super Duper Weenie. And, you know, whatever you want. What would your fancy be?
Thanks. Philly cheesesteak, please.
Philly cheesesteak.
I'll have a Chicago dog.
All right, guys. Here's to a job well done, right? Cheers. Cheers. Oh, man. I feel like we've come full circle. We have. We met here. We're eating here. Phil and Kiki Tura of Bourne, Massachusetts want to take 100 years of paint off their front door. I'm going to see if I can lend a hand. I understand the project's got to do with the front door.
That's correct.
What's going on here?
Well, we have an old door with needs some help.
This looks like the original door,
Yes, it is.
probably with the original paint. So what do you guys want to do?
Well, we'd like to strip it down and see what's underneath.
Removing the door means lifting it off these hinge pins. To get some leverage and save our backs, we use a pry bar and a block of wood. And off it comes. Higher. There we go. Okay, we're off. You know, this is fantastic that you've got a barn here to work in.
That's true.
And this is built about the same time as the house, you
Yes,
think?
it was.
Okay, probably 100 years of paint on here. One concern I have is that some of this paint undoubtedly contains lead. So we're going to take some extra precautions today. We don't create a health problem with that. But for right now, let's take off all this hardware. As the hardware comes off, some of the door's paint history reveals itself, giving us an idea of just how many layers we're dealing with.
I found 2 more colors, so we have some cream and a blue color, so that's 4 so far.
Now here's my concern. This glass is held in here with glazing putty, and it's in really bad shape. So Kiki and Phil go to work scraping out the old glazing. Can't you just tell they're newlyweds?
How you doing over there, sweetie?
Okay.
Okay, we're free. That did it. Okay. Hardware is off, glass is out. Well, it's time to start removing 100 years of paint. Much of this paint undoubtedly contains lead. Lead was a common ingredient in house paints until the late 1970s. Although removing paint with chemical strippers is much safer than sanding or scraping, we'll still need the right safety gear: respirators, disposable paper coveralls, rubber gloves, and eye protection. We're going to use a paste-type stripper that will cling to the moldings and detail work. We apply it with brushes by just laying it on the surface. Overbrushing can cause the active ingredients to evaporate, making the stripper less effective. After a few minutes, the paint begins to soften and then bubble. By using a wide putty knife, we can lift off several layers at a time. Brass bristle brushes are the best tools for removing loose paint from the moldings. Finally, we've gone about as far as we can go. Boy, we got a lot of paint off this. I'd say 8 to 10 coats, but when we got down to the last 2 or 3, which are probably 75 or 80 years old, that stripper that we were using just wouldn't touch it. So we're going to have to change to a different kind of stripper. This is a paste alkaline-based stripper. It doesn't have any fumes. It's water-based, but we do want to keep our eyes and hands protected. The way to put this on is with a putty knife. We just sort of spread this onto the flat surfaces like that. A brush works best when applying the paste to moldings and other irregular surfaces. Now we've got to keep this wet for 24 hours for it to really work. And to do that, we're going to use some freezer paper. There we go. Now this has a shiny side and a dull side. Put the shiny side up. It's important to press the paper firmly in contact with the stripping paste to eliminate as much air as possible. We also cover the paper with heavy plastic sheeting. So let's leave this. We'll come back tomorrow, take it off, and see what we've got. Okay?
Great.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
We've let this sit overnight. Let's see what's going on here. Ah, look at this. Just take that off, guys. Boy, you can see that it's really done something here. It's pulled a tremendous amount of pigment out of this paint. As we lift off the paper, we can see that much of the paint has released right down to the bare wood. Use the putty knives and get them under the paper and lift as you go like this. So we're definitely right down to the wood here.
Look at that.
Right down to the wood. Yep. Now, whatever stripper and old paint we can't scrape off, we wash off with a sponge and water. Looking very nice, huh?
Very nice, great.
So let's do the next section. Remember, we want to keep this damp, so we're doing it one section at a time. And as we lift this, we need to have the putty knife under here. We don't want to rely on the paper. Kiki, Phil, and I use wide and narrow putty knives to remove the stubborn 100-year-old paint. But it finally becomes clear that even using this method, some of the old paint just hasn't given up its hold on the wood.
It's reassuring to have you here and this not work perfectly. If I'd done this by myself, I would have felt like I had done something wrong.
Oh, that's very interesting. So having the so-called expert here and
Yes.
seeing that didn't work perfectly for him
Right.
makes it okay for you.
Yes, it does.
Well,
It's less frustrating.
Well, the day is just about over, so we peel off our protective gear and talk about where to go from here. Am I glad to be out of that?
That's for sure.
Okay, guys, I've got to head down the road, so I'm going to leave you with this. You've got a couple of options. I think one more application of stripper, and this paint would come off. You could then stain and varnish it, or you can let it dry, sand it, and then just prime and paint it. The choice would really be up to you.
Great.
But what a great first home improvement project on this beautiful 103-year-old house, your front door. And I am especially honored that you would spend your honeymoon working with me on a home improvement project.
Thanks for helping us.
Now, if you're using a wooden planter box, here are 3 tips that'll help your planter last longer and keep your plants healthier. With a putty knife, apply roofing cement to the inside of the planter. That'll protect it from water and keep it from rotting. Cover the drain holes on the bottom with landscape fabric to keep the soil from washing out. Finally, fill your planter with a good quality potting soil. If you have older built-in cabinets like these or wooden furniture, you may have a problem with sticking drawers. Now, some of the things that can cause that are paint on the side of the drawer like we have right here, the side of the drawer itself rubbing against the cabinet, or even the wooden drawer glide on the bottom just simply rubbing against the mating drawer glide inside. That wood-on-wood friction can make a drawer tough to operate. Whatever the problem, here are 3 solutions. The easiest way to remove heavy paint like this is to apply heat with a heat gun and then lift off the softened paint with a putty knife. Drawer sides that are rubbing can often be improved by sanding them with a 60 grit sandpaper wrapped around a block of wood. The third thing you can do to tune up your drawers is to lubricate any wooden surfaces that rub against each other, like this drawer glide right here, which rubs against the mating part here inside the cabinet. Now for that, you can use a stick of paraffin, a candle, or even a bar of soap. Well, there you go. 3 simple solutions to a sticky problem. Over 200 years ago, British author Samuel Johnson said, "Life affords no higher pleasure than that of surmounting difficulties, passing from one step of success to another, forming new wishes and seeing them gratified." Hey, that sounds like home improvement victories, doesn't it? Thanks for watching.
To view today's projects again, visit ronhazelton.com, where you'll find hundreds of how-to videos available 24/7.